um, Sexual Ethics Policy, Part 1, under the Texas Annual Conference Administration for the denomination of the United Methodist in Houston, Texas. Yesterday, I covered the policy on bullying. Today, I'm going to cover page 5, guidelines for preventing and reporting sexual harassment. The Texas Annual Conference will not tolerate sexual harassment in any form unless you are a sexual assault survivor of a United Methodist minister that was employed by the Texas Annual Conference. Then they could care less if you are sexually harassed in any church under their administration. Why do I know this? Well, because I myself was sexually harassed at multiple supervised visitations at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church that was under the Texas Annual Conference that employed my father, John Dowden. So they do make exceptions in this policy or regarding this policy because, like I said, it's ink on paper, really. That's all it is. So the following guidelines are intended to assist individuals to understand and maintain appropriate behavior at all times. Also, my ex-husband knew that he was bringing our sons to a United Methodist church that was under my ex-husband, Carly Anthony, knew that he was bringing our sons to a United Methodist church that was under an administration, the Texas Annual Conference of the United Methodist Denomination, that had a history of employing child molesters and placing them on assignment at their churches. One of them being my father, John Chester Dowden. Another one, Kendall Graham. My ex-husband, Carly Anthony, was aware of this. He was okay with exposing our sons, who were minors, to this type of atmosphere and environment because he wanted me to relive the trauma that I experienced from being sexually assaulted by a United Methodist minister. So he knew exactly what he was doing, and he was okay with it because he did not have a problem with the mother of our sons being sexually harassed right in front of them. Okay, definitions. A, sexual harassment includes, this is going to get really good, and pay attention because I have some excellent examples of how clergy should not behave. But like I said, they have these policies, but they don't necessarily apply them. I know. Unwelcome sexual advances, like a visiting parent coming on to you in the middle of a supervised visitation at a United Methodist church that is under the Texas Annual Conference Administration, who composed this policy that I am reading to you, the Sexual Ethics Policy. Requests for sexual favors and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. For example, a creepy guy who goes on and off his psychiatric meds, watching me in a Sunday school class at Lakewood United Methodist Church, regardless of if they're still under the Texas Annual Conference Administration. Because at the time this incident occurred, Lakewood United Methodist Church was under the Texas Annual Conference Administration. He watched me in the Sunday school class and approached me in the sanctuary uninvited and sat down beside me and proceeded to share with me personal details of his marriage and his relationship with his wife, because, I really wanted to know that from a creepy old guy at a United Methodist church that was under the administration that had a history of employing child predators who sexually assault minors, one of them being my father, John Chester Dowden, and another being Kendall Graham, who sexually assaulted a minor on the couch of his office and videotaped it while he was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. The same administration that allows the Domestic Relations Office to use their churches as visitation sites, right? Because they're somehow going to protect children. And some of those children have to go back to abusive parents. And the parent that was placed in the supervised visitation more than likely was wrongly accused and forced into it by an abusive spouse, because legal abuse in domestic violence marriages and relationships do exist. Okay. So here are some definitions of sexual harassment. 1, submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of an individual's employment. 2, submission or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as a basis for employment decisions affecting that individual. Or 3, such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment, like when I felt unsafe walking into a United Methodist church to visit our sons, knowing that as a child I had been sexually assaulted by a United Methodist minister employed by the Texas Annual Conference administration, which was over St. Stephen's United Methodist Church in Houston on West 43rd Street. I was afraid for my safety. I was afraid to speak up when Shane hugged me after I sang "Oh Holy Night" for my sons. I was in a coercive environment and did not feel safe enough to say, "Nope, stop. I don't want you touching me. You creepy old fuck. Go find a crack whore." I could not say that. As much as I wanted to, and as appropriate as it would have been, because of his behavior. Examples of sexual harassment. Oh, and I'm not done with the examples that I have. Examples of unwelcome conduct which may constitute sexual harassment include, but are not limited to, the following: physical conduct, aggression, aggressive physical contact or assault, sexual touching, unwelcome displays of romantic sexual affection. So I'll talk about some of the things that my father did. During this time, my father was on disability through the Texas Annual Conference as an ordained clergy. However, they may say, yes, but he was on disability. You're right, dumbasses. He was on disability, and you hired him. Anyway, I digress. So, some of the messed up things that he did is he would corner me in front of my mother and he would want to hug. I did not want to hug the son of a bitch because he was creepy as fuck. I myself would have rather hugged a crack whore than my own father, quite frankly. My father was one of the most disgusting and vile people I have ever known, and he was employed by the Texas Annual Conference Administration. I witnessed my father when my parents tried to adopt the 3 girls. I witnessed my father cup his hands around their bottoms. He would hold them, and when they would sit in his lap, he would cup his hand around their bottoms, and it would not fucking move. It bothered me. I didn't understand why it bothered me. I know even though it bothered me, I was glad he wasn't doing it to me, but I didn't like it that he was doing it to them, and I did not understand why. Because the way that I was treated was that if an adult puts their hand on your bottom, it's okay. They're an adult. They can do that. You as a child don't have bodily autonomy. You as a child can't say no. Don't touch me there. And believe me, this went on when my father was employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration. The girls, they would ask my father if they could see his penis. Young girls don't ask this question unless somebody has sexually abused them. As an adult, my father also made an attempt to expose himself to me. And I knew that's what he was trying to do, and I was mortified. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be around him. I wanted nothing to do with that situation. The way that he did it, the first time, he was grooming me, and he asked me to go and get a shirt for him, a t-shirt for him. My mother, I was an adult at the time, my mother said, get up and go get him a t-shirt. I was not in a position where I could say no, because if I had, there would have been hell to pay. So I got him the damn t-shirt. The next time he did this, he peeked outside of his bedroom because my parents did not sleep in the same bed because they were creepy as fuck. And so my father leaned out of the bedroom and I could see his head, and he was covered because the other half of him was in the bedroom. He asked me to get up and go get him a pair of underwear. I froze. I was mortified because I knew what he was up to. And why he was doing this while I was an adult, why he was trying to get away with this type of behavior while I was an adult is a whole other conversation. And it's because he thought he could get away with it. But I was too damn smart to know what was going on. And because I was on to him, I was not about to cater to his sick, fucked up behavior. And my mother immediately got up. You see, at the time, I thought she was protecting me. My mother was not protecting me. She immediately got up because she knew I wasn't going to keep my damn mouth shut. She was protecting the both of them, not me. And so she got up and went and got the piece of shit that's partially responsible for my existence, his damn underwear. During that time, my parents were attending Lake Houston United Methodist Church. My father, Lake Houston United Methodist Church, was under the Texas Annual Conference administration at the time. And he would manipulate young parents, new parents, into letting him hold their baby in a church service. With a sexual ethics policy that the Texas Annual Conference uses so they can say they're covering their ass, why would a United Methodist minister who has no association or familial relationship with an infant need to sit and hold that infant in a church service? How is that appropriate? And so when I can tell you, without even being there, without even witnessing it, I can tell you what he did. He did it because immediately, as soon as he was holding that infant, what was he doing? Cupping his hand around their bottom. Why? Because nobody was going to suspect anything. That was his motive. He enjoyed that. And they fell for it. And that's not my fault, because I wanted no part in it. I did not attend that church. I did not want to be there. I wanted no part in that. Next, kissing. Casual hugs not intended to be sexual. Okay, I have an example on this. That exact statement, casual hugs not intended to be sexual. I actually have two examples. I have many, but there's two I will discuss. One, there was a Methodist minister, and he was a male. And he was highly respected within the Texas Conference. He had also pastored, had been the senior pastor, served as the senior pastor at Henderson United Methodist Church. There was a time I was standing in line at Lakeview Methodist Camp in Palestine, Texas. And he was standing behind me. And as he was standing behind me, he was massaging my shoulders. It's possible his intent in that was as a fatherly presence. I just stood there. I wasn't quite sure, it would have been awkward if I had said, "Don't touch me." I mean, with everything I had been through, not being allowed to have bodily autonomy, what would possibly make me feel safe enough to say something? Because I sure as hell was not allowed to have bodily autonomy while my father was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. Even in some of the churches he pastored, and I hated it. Another example, a United Methodist minister who befriended me at the age of 15. She was very affectionate. It was School of Christian Mission. She was hugging me a lot, rubbing my back, scratching my back. I didn't really like people touching me, to be honest. Didn't like it. I allowed it because her intentions at the time seemed good. I didn't really understand, right? I mean, because clearly having a United Methodist minister who's employed under the Texas Annual Conference, being counseled by a psychologist who was his colleague, who's talked to me about inappropriate things in a counseling session, where would the boundaries be in telling her, please don't touch me? Please don't be affectionate with me. What 15-year-old has the boundaries, especially one who's been sexually abused, to say, you know, this is probably not appropriate? Or should I have had that just by osmosis somehow? Right? Next, massaging neck, shoulders, backs. I just gave that example. Being in someone else's space, like when I had to visit my kids at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church, and Shane kept getting in my face, and I would have to take a step back because, you know, he wanted to be buddy-buddy. And to be quite honest, I wanted nothing to do with it. But I didn't feel safe enough. I didn't feel like I was in a safe enough environment to set a boundary and say, I am not interested in interactions with you. I am not here to have interactions with you. I am here to visit my sons. I was not able to say that in a United Methodist church. Why? Because I had been sexually abused by a United Methodist minister employed under the Texas Annual Conference, the same administration that is over St. Stephen's United Methodist Church. My plan was to do 30 minutes, half an hour. I may go a little over, but you know what? I won't be the first. There were plenty of United Methodist ministers that have gone over their times in sermons, and I'm certainly not a United Methodist minister, because they sure as hell would never want anybody as damaged as me in their pulpit, but they'll allow a child molester in their pulpit. Being, leering, obscene or vulgar gestures, including gestures simulating sexual acts, shooting the finger, kissing the arrow toward someone, or licking the lips in a sexually suggestive or provocative manner. Verbal propositions, sexual innuendos. Oh, my dad was good at that. He loved doing that. He loved giving sexual innuendos, you know, like when my mother told me to massage Alex's gums when he was an infant. And I can't repeat what I wanted to do for my father's gums, because that would be considered inappropriate to say. Off-color jokes. Oh, yes, my dad had plenty of off-colored jokes, usually towards me, usually sexual comments towards me, like when I turned 30 and I had on a red halter top dress that day, and my father had just had his third open heart surgery. And he had said to me, if he was not hurting so bad, he would have bent me over his knee and given me a birthday spanking. That is just sick. And let me tell you, when your own father finds you sexually, is interested in you sexually, when you are sexualized by your own father, and it is non-consensual, it is the most vile experience on earth. It is absolutely disgusting. I would have rather died than been consensual with my father's desire to sexualize his relationship with me. Because that is sick. And no one should ever go through that. I have covered, the next video will be a continuation of the guidelines for preventing and reporting sexual harassment, because there's more terms to read for that. And I know that Bishop Easterling has also spoken out in defense of sexual assault survivors. And I think Bishop Easterling in Maryland knows that the United Methodist Denomination can come up with something far more substantial than a pathetic apology that is read to clergy, knowing that victims would not even be there to hear that apology or experience that apology or process any emotions or validity that that apology was meant to bring. And that is a failure. And that is all I have.